town here that have seen that need, have seen that, how they can show their love to the community. And they're going to tell us kind of a vision they have, and I'm not sure how the vision began, but I'm thinking that they will tell us. So the floor is yours.
Ready one?
Do you need your voices, or do you need a microphone?
I've had kids, I can yell. They're 20 and 21 now, so I don't have to yell very much
Can
anymore.
you hear them if they don't use a microphone?
Yeah, I'll try.
We'll try to speak up.
Yeah,
How's that?
if I don't hear, I'll move out here.
Okay.
Well, I'm Therese Ketchem, and I've lived here in the Pretty Prairie community for 10 years in June. I've worked at the nursing home, thanks to Paula. And now I am disabled because I have poor circulation in my legs. So I've kind of been trying for 10 years, or for 5 at least, to find my purpose in this community, because I just kind of lost my purpose here. So we're going to tell you how God found a purpose for us, I guess.
And I'm Liz Shepherd, and I grew up in this community from 6th grade, and then I graduated in 1980 from Pretty Prairie High School.
Are you related to Edgar Shepherd?
That was it's a married name.
Pardon?
It's my married name.
Yeah.
And I was Reverend Bollinger's granddaughter from the
sure.
Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And then my parents are Ed and Judy Markle.
Okay,
And
okay.
I left here in 1980 to go to college and swore I'd never come back here, and here I am again. I tell my kids never say never, but it's the best move that I could have made, was coming back to raise my kids. And now I'm kind of like Therese, except I work a full-time job in Hutch, and then we kind of stumbled upon this, and now we know this is where we're meant to be, in Pretty Prairie, doing what we're doing. So this brings us to Ubuntu. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about us, read about us in the paper, but where do we begin?
I know. Well, we were trying to find where do we start, so we decided to start in the beginning. In 2012, in May, Karen and Russell Allen opened a thrift store at the Napa building uptown. And Liz and I had seen each other, our kids went to school together, but we never really had a connection. We'd say hi to each other when we saw each other uptown. But we started kind of working together at the Full Circle thrift store. And it was kind of neat because as we talked, we kind of had the same vision for what we saw. I think Karen and Russell saw it as a community helping the needy, providing clothes. But Liz and I saw that we wanted something more, that we thought that if we could earn enough money, that we could do some outreach. And that, I think that was kind of our goal. But anyway, the building went on the market, and Karen and Russell pretty much said, you know, we really don't want to move on with this, but if you guys would like to, we're just going to put it in your hands. So the end of March was that was our goal, to be out of that building, and we loaded up the things that we thought we could sell in a new building. Not really sure why, because there was no building to be had. But we boxed up a bunch of the better of what had been donated and put it in a storage building for a little while, and sent some of it to Karen and Russell's, and started our search for a building. So,
Okay, which brings us to, we have storage buildings full of items. We shipped off, we filled a Goodwill semi full. It was packed full. We had high school boys came one afternoon, and they helped us load that whole thing, and it was packed. You couldn't have got another thing in that we gave away. But we kept probably half a semi full.
there was enough to start a new store.
Yeah. So we started searching, asking people in town that might have a building if we could lease from them. We couldn't find anybody to help us. So we started to know that maybe this was our lesson in patience, which I don't do very well with. I need instant gratification is what I normally. So we started talking to people, and Kyle Larson approached us, and he has Ringneck Haven uptown next to the city office, and he had the other part used for storage of the old grocery store. And he said, I'll tell you what, he talked to us, he knew what our vision was, and he said, if you want to clean out this side of the building, you can use it. 2 years rent-free is what we finally negotiated with him. So we thought, oh yeah, this is what we want to do. This is where we're supposed to be. But when we went inside and looked at the building, it's piled high with all kinds of stuff that had been stored in there. Dirt all over everything. We had no electricity, just basically cold and dirt is what we had. So but we still knew that this is where home needed to be for us. We prayed a lot on it. And we got volunteers to come. We cleaned out the building and
waited.
We still didn't know what we were going to do. So then we decided we needed to figure out what our name was going to be. We decided we wanted to have a fresh start from Full Circle since we had a different vision for what we wanted to do. And I started looking on YouTube. Something drew me to a videotape of Nelson Mandela. And he was talking about a philanthropist that had gone into an African village, and he had taken a big basket of fruit. He had all of the children gather in the center of this village, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to set this basket of fruit over here. The first one of you children that can run to it gets the whole basket. So when he told them to run, all of the children gathered hands, and they all ran together. Mm-hmm. And when they they were eating the fruit, and he said, so why didn't one of you just win? You could have had the whole thing. And one of the children said, Ubuntu. He said, how can I be happy when everybody else has needs? And the other meaning for Ubuntu are community, caring, compassion, and it's I am because we are. We knew that was the name of our store. It so tells what Pretty Prairie is. It's always been a caring and compassionate community, looking out for each other. So we knew that that's what the name of our store had to be. Besides, we knew nobody would be able to pronounce it, and it'd be a conversation starter. And we've had a lot of people say, why would you choose something from South Africa and name it something in Pretty Prairie? And to us, we're all the same, So that's where we got the name of our store. We then had to put word out that we needed help. We asked for volunteers, and slowly we started getting, I'd say there were about a dozen of us, probably, that would show up in the cold, dark building, move stuff out, clean it up, paint some walls. We actually got Kyle to let us for electricity. We turned his outlets around in the wall, and we started using electricity out of his. All of the materials were donated. We had Jeff McReynolds worked out at Siemens. He would bring back trailers of pallets that they let people have. On Fridays, you could go load up 3 pallets. And he'd bring those, and Ryle and Jeff and Ann Smith and Gene Stallman, they would tear those pallets apart, and they built us our wall that we have in there, that we do our displays on. And with a little chicken wire and little pallets, we have a pretty nice wall, we think. So that's where the volunteers came from. So now I think it's your turn.
And our donations, if you were in that other store, and I think I had seen some of you in there, it was so full. There was boxes, bags sitting everywhere. The racks were all full. And that's really not what we wanted. in a store. We wanted people to come in and be, you know, it would be easy to access the things. And so we kind of rearranged, and we painted a lot of the shelving and stuff to kind of brighten it up. And but the donations continue to come in. Our shed's full every week. And not only that, but when I said that we sat and waited, it really wasn't that long, because we were trying to figure out how we were going to do our electricity. You know, we didn't have the lighting that we needed in the back, but the light from outside was pretty bright for the front of it, so we weren't really worried about that. But a couple of men who work for Kyle came into the store one day, and they were kind of looking around. This is pretty cool. You guys have a really neat idea. And Liz and I both said, you know, we're just concerned about the lighting. We really need lights. And he said, well, you know, it wouldn't be that hard to run some conduit and wire through it to run lights. And I said, are you offering? And he said, well, sure, we'll do it for you if you'll just buy the supplies. So we wondered where we're going to come up with the money to get the supplies. And I was laying on my couch watching football one Sunday, and there was a knock at the door. And Karen Russell handed me a check for $1,000. And that is the way this has gone for us. It has just been a dynamic journey. And we're not done. I mean, we are moving on. So, go ahead, sister.
Okay. Like she said, we've gotten a lot of donations from individuals. The clothing that we get come in the bagfuls like they did at the other place. We pick through the things that we know that the people in our community need. We outreach to other communities too. She took a few bags of coats and shoes and things to a couple little kids in Pratt this week who had nothing. So those kind of donations keep coming in. This is a good time for us to say thank you to the New Jerusalem Church. I'm not sure, I checked with Linda. Jane had offered, when I was out at Camp Minnesota doing the art class, she said that she is given money from the church for her services, and that she was going to donate to us on the behalf of your church $500. So we wanted to thank you very much for that. That has gone towards our 501c3 that we're trying to get. So the donations like that keep coming in, but we also find that as soon as we get money in like that, there's a need in the community, and we have to put it back out, or want to put it back out, I guess. Am I rambling? I'm lost.
Well, I think that we can move on to the 501c3, because a lot
Well,
of people may not know.
Well, no, we need to do some of the giving though, because
Well, I think so too.
the outreach that we do is not only in the community. Our mission and our vision, which came from the name Ubuntu, is that we feel like even if it's in Wichita, if there's people that need something, that it's not us to question why they need it, what they'll do with it if we donate to them, if there's a need that we need to fill it. And a couple of things that we've done with the giving is, I'm sure some of you participated in the fundraiser for Braden Blattenberg, who is Andrea Stroll's husband. He was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma and was needing some help, and so we helped that family, and we had a fundraiser for them that was very successful. And in the meantime, the store did very well that day too. 3 days after that is when the storm came through and hit Pretty Prairie. And, you know, as most of you know that live here, you couldn't get down the street because of power lines and trees, and, you know, that had fallen on homes and cars. And we knew at that point, that's why we did so well that week before, 3 days before, because now we had the money that we could put back out in the community. And so we paid for the gasoline up at Stroll's, so anybody that needed to run a chainsaw or a generator, they didn't have to worry about getting their property cleaned up. So it's things, little things like that. Every time that we makes some money, we know it's going to come in the door where it needs to be. One of the programs that we've just started in the last couple of weeks to get familiar with is a man named Breakfast Bob, and he's in Wichita, and he runs, I'd say it's not a program, it's on his own, and he helps the homeless in Wichita. And we found him on Facebook, and he is doing fantastic things, except he's going under the bridges. He's taking clothing and blankets, and he is taking pictures of those people and telling their stories so that you don't just think it's a homeless person, you get to see who they are and what they're all about. And every day he posts what he's doing, who he's met, a story about one of the people that's living under a bridge in Wichita. And I wanted to I wrote something down that he talked about yesterday, a story that he shared with a gentleman named Greg. He said, he went to check on him to see how he was doing. He says, Greg was really down. He said, I asked him what was wrong. He said, Bob, I just can't understand why people are so mean. Just because I'm homeless doesn't mean that I don't have feelings, concerns, wants, needs, desires. I was thinking to myself, this man needs Christ. So I gave him my best opening line to open the discussion. I asked him, so where do you find your strength? I was shocked when he immediately said, well, my best friend. I was taken aback but decided to bide my time and listen. So I could tell him about, so I said, so tell me about him. Greg said, well, he was homeless like me, which I had to figure because homeless don't have high society friends. So Greg began talking, and all the while I'm trying to figure out how to bring Christ into the equation. As he kept speaking about his friend, I became engrossed about this guy. After 10 minutes, I asked Greg if I knew him. I know a lot of the homeless. And he thought briefly, then said, Bob, I don't know if you know him or not. Anyway, he continued, and I was mesmerized, and I said, well, I've got to meet this guy. Greg said, Bob, you can't. He died a long time ago, murdered in fact, because of the cruelty and hatred of those around him. I felt terrible and said, I'm sorry, but I thought that was the opportunity to open the door and talk about God and the strength he provided. So I asked, Greg, what was his best friend's name? And he simply looked at me and said, Jesus. He said, Bob said, he looked at me and then he said, Bob, you've been wanting to tell me something all this time. I'm sorry, I haven't given you time. What is it? And I looked at him and I said, no, Bob, today's the day I just needed to listen. So, and I'm going to tear up. This is why we're doing what we do. And our mission, we're lucky that we don't have homeless in Pretty Prairie. But we have some people here that are about as close to it as you can get. You've got to take over.
About a month ago, we were working at the store on a Saturday, and who brought it in? Somebody donated a baby bed. And it had just come in, and we were trying to figure out where we're going to put it because we're so full. And so this is just an example of what happens to us. And so not too long after that, Nikki Gearing, who is in charge of the food bank, shows up, and she's like, oh, a baby bed. And I said, yeah. I said, we don't have any room for it. I know where it needs to go. There's a couple here in town are getting ready to have a little baby, and they have nothing. So Liz and I put the word out that this couple had nothing, that they're having this baby, they're so poor, that they're not even able to pay their rent. Their landlord pays their rent and their bills. And so we decided that we wanted to help her too, so we put the word out that we needed baby clothes and that we needed diapers and wipes and all this stuff for the baby. And by the time we delivered the bed to them last week, it was overflowing. And so anytime, the nice thing about it is anytime that we do ask for anything, it's always provided, which says a lot for our community too. Little things that pushed us along, like when we were building, somebody put you're gonna have to help me, a timber up, and we use it for a rod to hang clothes on, and it was twisted. And Liz and I would walk by that and go, "Oh, we've got to do something with that. It's
It looks
so
like the
annoying."
wall's leaning.
It does, it looks like the wall's leaning, but the timber is twisted, you know, the lumber, the piece of lumber. And so we had talked about it one Saturday, and like the next Tuesday night, somebody showed up with, well, and Liz had said, you know, if we had some vines we could hang from it to hide it, you know. And the next Tuesday night, somebody brought us a big box of fake vines. I mean, so it's, you know,
It happens
it's
to us
like,
all the time.
it does. I mean, that's just two examples of things when we have a need, God provides always. So we know that this is what God would have us do. And so,
But now we're at phase 2. We've opened the store, we've got the things that the community needs, we're trying to reach out, but now we want to do phase 2, which is get our 501c3 not-for-profit, because if we can do that, then we can apply for grants. We can approach foundations that have just about anything this community needs. Now, we're not saying that we'll get money from every grant that we apply for, but at least we can apply. You know, a community of 600 people can only do so much. We all know it seems like the same people are always involved in everything. You know, they're on the same boards, they're doing everything they can do, but we can only do so much with the 600 people we have. So that's why our phase